Welcome to the Potter Discussion.
Welcome back to the Potter Discussion, discussing Harry Potter, Fantastic Beasts, and the Wizarding World fandom. I'm your host, Oscar, and this is episode 125. Thank you all for joining me today. This episode is the final episode before the release of The Secrets of Dumbledore. I'm going to be locking in my predictions. I'm going to be giving you some more theories, just some stuff from my brain that I just want to get out there, and hopefully some of them will be right. I do have a kind of a master theory that I will want to discuss in this episode, so that's going to be part of it. But there are also a lot of little small things that I think will really play a big part in the movie, kind of as a whole, if they are all turning out to be somewhat true, at least. So this is going to be a great episode. But as promised, we do have a challenge question. We'll just get right into that. If you do not know, last week we had a Quizmaster episode. It was Dumbledore, a Quizmaster about Dumbledore, and the challenge question was, when did Dumbledore start at Hogwarts? This is a tricky one. If you did the math, you likely were correct on this one. The answer for the challenge question, when did Dumbledore start at Hogwarts, is 1892, the autumn of 1892. September 1st, actually. It's kind of a trick question to get even more specific. Of course, everyone starts on September 1st. So that's when Dumbledore started at Hogwarts, 1892, which is a very long time ago. So that is the answer to the challenge question. And, I mean, every week I come back and I say something amazing about the Instagram account. It's growing again. Now, what I say last week, we were at like 9,000. Well, we crossed 10,000, and now we're almost at, we're nearing 15,000 followers. So it is just going swimmingly, absolutely swimmingly. So if you want to check that out, that is at ThePotterDiscussion on Instagram. A lot of content. It's a great way to get into the Potter Discussion community. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. Check that out. And another thing, the last thing I want to talk about is that the new music, the Secrets of Dumbledore music, has been released on Apple Music. I didn't check Spotify, but I think Apple Music is where it's at. Only 2 songs, obviously, only 2 pieces, because I had to say this. I wouldn't talk about it usually, but we just had a music episode, so I felt like just in honor of that, we had to talk about this a little bit. I just have some very quick thoughts. So there's only 2 pieces on there right now: the theme and a song called The Room We Require. I was very disappointed. I want to say with the theme, it was a fantastic piece of music, but it really wasn't the kind of... It did not feel like Fantastic Beasts. There was no themes of Fantastic Beasts at the very end. That was the only time we heard any Fantastic Beasts-related things. At the very end, it was like a little... it wasn't even like up front. That wasn't even the main thing. It was very fleeting. Clearly in the scene, that was not an action scene at all. So I was very disappointed with the theme. It is a great piece, but not Fantastic Beasts. Not Fantastic Beasts at all. But the next piece, The Room We Require, I was very pleased with. It was absolutely fantastic. Had a lot of the themes that we heard, and most notably, it had some of that Hedwig's theme in there. So I think this is really the prophecy coming true of how they're showing Hogwarts. Even it's on the cover. Hogwarts is on the cover of the album. So there's a lot of Hogwarts. The prophecy is really coming true. They are really incorporating all this stuff, and I will say I did fall prey to their trap. It was epic that Hedwig's theme, the incorporation, was actually really good. So I highly recommend you check that out on Apple Music and just search The Secrets of Dumbledore. But all the same, that is really my thoughts on that. But this is not a music episode, although I wish it was. This is a theory episode, and this is going to be a great episode. So I really want to get into this. This is really the last time you're going to hear me before the movie's out. I really wanted to do a breakdown of the movie the day after it came out, but unfortunately that's not going to happen, so it's going to be the next week. I'm super excited for the release of the movie and for this episode, so let's get straight into it. The first thing I want to talk about is how far in the future will the Secrets of Dumbledore take place. This is something that we've been speculating about for a while, but I think now that we have as much information as we ever will, with, the movie not out yet, I think it now is the final time that we should really get our predictions in. The Fantastic Beasts series started in 1923, I believe. It stayed in the 20s, since the Crimes of Grindelwald were still in the 1920s. So the question really here is what I'm wondering, will we go into the 30s? Like we were talking about, the whole series is going to end in 1945, and the 20s and 1945 are very far away, so there has to be a lot of time jumped. So the question is, how are they going to jump that much time? Well, they have to start somewhere. They can't just kind of shoulder it off onto one movie, just, carry on, year after year after year, then suddenly FB5. They're like, yep, 20 years in the future, how about that? So that's really something they cannot do, but I think they're going to kind of do a little more, like, subtle, but still jumping, like, it's going to be more of either, a lot of months, at least 10, 11 months in the future, or at least 2 years. Because they really have to move things along. Like we said, 1945 is a very long way away. And from the Crimes of Grindelwald, then to the Secrets of Dumbledore, then how much time left to pass? It was a couple years, I believe, in between. I mean, maybe it was only one, maybe two, between Fantastic Beasts and the Crimes of Grindelwald. But now, if we go from the Crimes of Grindelwald to the Secrets of Dumbledore, I think it's going to be a tad more than that, because they have to start, getting some years in. And I think this also might be why Tina's on the movie. I think this is also kind of how this whole, Tina thing plays in, because there have been, wonderings of, is Tina pregnant? Is that why she's not here? Are Tina Newton married? Is it a whole, new rhetoric in place of, relationships? I don't know. So we also see some differences in the characters. I mean, Dan Fogler. I mean, maybe it's just Dan Fogler, but I was just thinking of Jacob's hair is a little curly, so maybe that has something to do with it. But there is definitely a time gap that has to form for the story to really happen as it should. And of course, they can't change the canon, because that means the Harry Potter movies wouldn't really be relevant. So they have to somehow tie in a time something. The one thing I will not stand for is if they bring in time turners. That would just be ridiculous. Actually, another thing that I was noticing is it was very, very, close after this movie is that scene with Dumbledore going to see young Tom Riddle. So for Jude Law now to turn into the young Michael Gambon that's definitely going to have to be explained. So there's a lot of stuff to still be figured out. And of course, the answers will be given in the movie, but for now, I'm going to say my prediction lies around 3 years. I'm going to say 3 years has passed. We are in the 30s. It is, very, very early 30s. I'll give you that. About 3 years, maybe a little more. And the story has moved along. There's been no more activity in terms of Grindelwald. He has just been with Credence and Queenie in Nurmengard, in Nurmengard. I was thinking, that's a prison, but it's not a prison yet. I think that is really where this whole story is going, and that's kind of why it's going to be a big deal when they, turn up again, because they've been away for so long. And then there's Queenie, like that she fits into this, I don't know where. That is my prediction, 3+ years. And now, like I was talking about in the beginning of this episode with the music released, I want to talk about how much Harry Potter will be in this. Not the franchise, but let's just call it the Potter world. Really, where does this stand? Where does the Hogwarts come into it? Where do McGonagall with all the wands? Where does all that kind of stuff come in, and how much of it will appear? In just the 2 pieces released, we already heard that Hedwig's theme was blared, and the Hogwarts is on the cover of the album. So clearly, they're leaning on Hogwarts, and of course, we already knew that. As through the trailers, we've seen Quidditch, we've seen Hogwarts, we have seen all that kind of stuff, and in the trailers they say return to Hogwarts, the world created by Warner Brothers, all that kind of stuff is really being brought back. And although I think it is not something they should lean on, I think they are. And for better or for worse, I think that is going to add an element of Potter into the series. If that means we'll see Hogwarts, if that means we'll be in a lesson, or if that just means that they will be Hogwarts a couple times. Well, my prediction for this is I want to kind of think about how many times Hogwarts is going to appear, and really how are they going to tie that back to the Potter series, because of course their whole goal when they're showing Hogwarts is to kind of connect it back to Harry Potter, remember this series? So they're gonna have to find some bridge, some gap to fill, some bridge to build between Fantastic Beasts and Harry Potter, because no one else will, the casual moviegoer who has seen Harry Potter will be like, oh yeah, like when they see Hogwarts, they'll just think it's a part of Fantastic Beasts because it's the same world. Warner Brothers has to have some kind of way to bridge the gap between, Fantastic Beasts and Harry Potter, because they're similar worlds, they exist in the same universe, but they're very different stories, and that is going to be the challenge of if they want to bring Hogwarts in as much as they did, and how much as they have, how are they going to connect it in between the stories and make it seem natural, but also kind of have the element of it's Hogwarts, look at this, that they are going for. Now, I don't think it will be as prevalent as it was in the trailers. I think that was very much just to get people to go to the movie. But I still think that we did see a couple good shots of Hogwarts, a couple good shots of Quidditch. There is going to be some element of, this is Harry Potter, this is magic, come back to see this movie. And I do think we are going to hear at least some themes, like we already have here, like I was just talking about a ton. Hedwig's theme we've heard. I think we're also going to hear some similar kind of styles of music. The theme for the Secrets of Dumbledore does kind of sound like a John Williams, composed very clangy bangy. That's really what I was thinking of. So there's definitely an element of Harry Potter that they are trying to incorporate, and I will say they're doing it very well. But I think there's a very when I say they, I mean like Warner Brothers, the whole movie makers. But I think the line that they are trying not to cross is a very, very, very thin line. So however much they try, I think any amount of Potter they put into the Fantastic Beasts series will be just a tad too much, and people will recognize that. If they don't do that for the fourth movie, I think if they move on from Harry Potter and they really focus on Fantastic Beasts, really making it its own thing, I think it can kind of be redeemed. It doesn't have to be Harry Potter. It can be something else entirely. It can be its own thing. And obviously, it tried to. Fantastic Beasts is trying to move away from Harry Potter, but they have to lean on Harry Potter's legacy right now to really get away. Fantastic Beasts, the first movie made like a couple $100 million in the box office, which is fantastic. And then comes to Grindelwald, made like $70 million. And I think what Warner Brothers is really trying to do is get out of the rut of really not making a lot of money. And obviously that is the main concern here. If they make this movie and it doesn't turn out to be exactly what they wanted it, they're taking a big risk. If they don't really have this element of here's why you should see the movie. Because the draw is the story, the draw is the franchise. But without that draw, without only the measly $70 million they made in the box office, I say jokingly, they don't have that base of Fantastic Beasts. So they have to find the other base, which is so conveniently Harry Potter. And that is really what I'm thinking here. So now let's get to really the numbers. How much will Hogwarts be shown, with a big sweeping shot over the lake to the castle? How much will that go? I think it's going to be at least 2. I think we have seen at least a couple shots of that in the trailers alone. So I think it's going to be at least 2, but I think it's going to be closer to 4. I think there's only going to be one big sweeping shot with Hedwig's theme, but I think there is going to be elements of that. I'm saying elements so much. Wow. I think that, how about this? Hints. I think there's going to be hints of Harry Potter themes in, while they transition back. Because, of course, They can't just do like a cutaway from America, then they're in Hogwarts. Like, of course, people will know what that is, but it's too jarring. So they might do, cutaway. So Newt's talking in America, then they kind of go over the clouds, and they see kind of like coming down on Hogwarts. So it's not going to be this big reveal every time, like a parent playing peekaboo with their toddler, but there is still going to be a kind of like entry shot, and they're going to try to incorporate that as much as possible, because that is really how they drive these ticket sales and how they make excitement around the movie. So I think it's at least 2, closer to 4, maybe 5. That's what I'm thinking here for how much will shots of Hogwarts be incorporated into Fantastic Beasts and the Secrets of Dumbledore. Now, I will, just as a little sidebar before we move on here, I do think that there'll be a lot more name drops. Professor McGonagall, we've heard, of course, obviously Dumbledore, but I think we're also going to hear some things that we're hearing about in the Potter series, like Pensive. Obviously, we see the Pensive in the trailer. We see Michael Gambon in the trailer, for crying out loud. So there's going to be a lot of that. I think there's going to be some stuff between Dumbledore and Grindelwald. I think there's going to be some stuff about Ariana, because, of course, we saw some leaks of photos from the actor who was allegedly playing Ariana Dumbledore. So we'll see how that really turns out. Just the matter of Credence, being inside, so the Ariana Credence Obscurus stuff is really confusing. But I think the whole name drop situation is going to be a lot more, there's going to be a lot more name drops, because now they can really, because they're closer to the Potter series, that they can kind of move into the more, closer to that, and really incorporating more elements of the story, of Harry Potter into Fantastic Beasts. So a lot more name drops, but again, at least 2 sweeping shots of Hogwarts, 3, closer to 4, maybe 5. That's my overarching prediction. Now I have my first big theory. Really the first thing that is going to be a very, very large part of not only the Secrets of Dumbledore, but the rest of the franchise. And that is the Blood Pact, and what Dumbledore is going to do about it. So far, with the Blood Pact, we have seen it in the first and second of the installments of the Fantastic Beasts series, really. It has played a role in that. Dumbledore says he cannot move against Grindelwald. He simply cannot. Or, in his words, I can't. And it has been playing a role in the story up to this point. Dumbledore could not go and, to fight Grindelwald, and when the Ministry asked him to, he said no, because he couldn't, because he said, I can't. He just couldn't, he can't. So, in this movie, this is going to be really the turning point of, is there going to be a destruction of the Blood Pact, or is it going to stay intact? That rhymed. Well, I think the answer to the question really is yes. The Blood Pact will get destroyed this movie, because this is kind of tying into the rest of the theory about how this movie has to be pretty far in the future. And it is not destroyed yet. It will be destroyed in the movie, we will be seeing it, have seen it destroyed, and there will not be a, this is how it was destroyed flashback scene. So, yes, the Blood Pact will be destroyed, and I think it is going to be kind of, I'm not going to say the climax of the movie, but it is going to be a very, very large part of how the rest of the story plays out. Not only because it is, of course, the one thing holding Dumbledore back from Grindelwald, but also it seems even thinking about Grindelwald, even thinking about moving against Grindelwald, causes him pain. It really, like the Blood Pact we saw, kind of like, it tightens around Dumbledore's wrist, and he's really struggling. So this is really something that has to be destroyed. It has to. And what I was kind of thinking was, I think it's going to be kind of a Horcrux situation. Harry needed to find, the basilisk venom imbued sort of Gryffindor to destroy the locket, and Ron had find basilisk fangs, and the diadem was destroyed with fiend fire. So I think it's going to be a similar situation like that. Dumbledore is going to find something that is just so powerful or so destructive, or both. I mean, it is going to have to be both. That it destroys the Blood Pact. Now, I think there's going to be it's going to be kind of like getting 2 birds with 1 stone, where, Dumbledore's going to save save Newt or like save Theseus, or I mean, like I said, or both, from something, like by using the power of the Blood Pact, in doing so, like kind of draining it and then destroying it. So there's definitely going to be, it's the Blood Pact is going to be destroyed this movie. That is really, I think one of the predictions that I think they have to, almost, because there's no way the story can continue in the way that it has to if the Blood Pact is not destroyed. Now, when I say destroyed, I think that can mean several different things. Yes, the way I think it will go down is the Blood Pact will be literally broken apart. The pact will be broken and the power will be lost. But another thing they could do is just make it void in any way. That is really the only way that's the only other route they could go, is making it, not valid anymore. Because Dumbledore, I mean, this is really what they like. This is what has to happen, and really what we saw happening. Dumbledore and Grindelwald duel. That is all we saw in the trailer. They are clearly wand to wand. They are clearly going at it, and the Blood Pact seems to be destroyed. I don't know if that is the future, if that is the past, if that is the present where the Blood Pact was destroyed. But the fact still remains that we saw the Mads Mikkelsen Grindelwald and we saw Dumbledore duel. I don't know how that changes this, but I think it does support the theory that the Blood Pact will be destroyed in The Secrets of Dumbledore. And this is called The Secrets of Dumbledore, so there has to be more than just destroying the Blood Pact and going after Grindelwald to this movie. So that could, that could play a role in the whole thing, but that's really a discussion until the movie's out. But yeah, that's really what I'm thinking. The Blood Pact has to be destroyed in this movie, or moving on will just seem pointless. Because, think about it. If it's not, then they have to destroy it in the fourth movie. And if they don't destroy the fourth movie, they have to destroy the fifth movie, which will just completely defeat the point of them dueling Grindelwald. Now, the only foreseeable thing I could see happening if it's not destroyed in this movie is for it to be destroyed in the last movie, and that is to be the kind of duel that they have. That's really why they can duel and why they do. Dumbledore finding a way to finally destroy the Blood Pact, and then Grindelwald, seeing that, and they have to go at it, in the last movie. But I think this movie is really where they have to, because that's it's built-in excitement. Really, once they destroy it, then the gate is open, and then Dumbledore can go after Grindelwald as much as he wants. That is my overarching prediction for Blood Pact. It will be destroyed in this movie, and Dumbledore will have to do it. So there is another part of this puzzle that we haven't talked about yet that plays a huge part in the foreseeable future, and that is Credence. Credence has been a major wild card in the series so far, joining Mr. Graves and how he's with Grindelwald. He's discovered his power. He's Aurelius Dumbledore. We really don't know what is going on with Credence, but what we've seen so far is Credence has bonded with his Obscurus. He has become, this evil person that he sees himself as, and he is just confused, and he doesn't know what's happening. He doesn't even know who he is still. So Credence is really what I want to cover next. Not what is Credence, but really who is Credence, because that still hasn't really been confirmed. Yes, we have heard that Grindelwald claims that he is Aurelius Dumbledore, but that, I think, is another interesting topic that we'll get into the second half of this kind of Credence point. But for the overarching, what is happening with Credence, I think he's either going to not change at all. He's going to be just still confused, and that's going to be kind of like another one of the main finishing points is Credence. So he's either going to stay the same, he's going to join Dumbledore, or he's going to die. Those are, really the three options that I see in Credence's future. So the reason I say that is Credence is very, not lenient, he is very flexible, and he's very fluid. He was not a bad person. He was just not really understanding of who he was in the orphanage, and then he went with Grindelwald, and Grindelwald was like, yeah, you're Aurelius Dumbledore, you're powerful, you're a wizard, now act like it. So Credence was like, okay, I have to do this to fit in, and he exploded a mountain, and he was like, cool. And then a phoenix appeared to him. So a lot of things are really coming out with with that reveal of the Phoenix, of Dumbledore, of him being a Dumbledore. So really, what is going to happen with Credence? Well, I think his Obscurus is going to be a part of this story. Much more so than it was. We saw he did have a wand, and he was casting spells. He was manipulating matter. He was doing a very powerful thing. He was dueling Dumbledore, and Dumbledore had to escape. Credence is a very powerful wizard, and that is also going to be why he has to make a decision of join, stay, or die. Obviously, he's not going to choose to die, but that might just be what comes of it. And another clip in the trailer was Dumbledore holding the Deluminator, holding Credence down. Now, what could that mean? I don't know. It takes out the light of someone. Maybe that's why he wanted to kill Credence. Or maybe, wow, I just came up with that. If it takes out the light in someone, maybe he takes the light, the goodness out of Credence, just leaving his Obscurus, which allows him to destroy the Obscurus. Maybe that's what happening. Maybe, oh my gosh, these theories are coming out of me. Maybe, okay, I was going to get into this a bit later, but of course we know the whole Ariana is inside of Credence. It's Ariana's Obscurus inside of him. That's why he's a Dumbledore. That's why the Phoenix came to him. That's why Dumbledore wants to help him. Dumbledore wants to help Credence, but Ariana's inside Credence, that whole thing. Maybe Dumbledore's trying to take Ariana out of Credence. Maybe Credence doesn't have an Obscurus, and maybe that's why he survived for so long, because Ariana was inside of him. And, they're combined ever that stayed alive, because as we heard in the first movie, the first Fantastic Beasts, Newt said that an Obscurial, someone who has an Obscurus inside them, doesn't live till 10. 10's about the cutoff. And Credence is what, like 16, 17, 18? So he is certainly living past 10 with an Obscurus inside him. But maybe it's not his, maybe it's Ariana's, and maybe it was Credence's help with Ariana that allowed her and him, that allowed them really to stay alive. Maybe Dumbledore saw that. Maybe now Dumbledore has his Deluminator, and he is trying to bring Ariana out of Credence, leaving just Credence. Maybe that's why he's so confused, because he thinks he is two people. He does not have his set identity. He's having an identity crisis because he is not himself. He's literally two people. So maybe that is really what's going on there. And so that's really my theory around that. But also, kind of another thing that another interesting clip was Credence and Dumbledore dueling, and Credence held out his hand and was shooting his Obscurus out of his hand at Dumbledore. That is unbelievable control. We saw it just exploded out of him and went crazy. But now not only it's long hair, but now that's really the shocker here. But now he can control his Obscurus. That is really just what are they going with that? Is that Grindelwald's big power move? Is that really what Grindelwald is going for? An Obscurus is an immensely powerful thing of a young witch or wizard's feelings pushed down and their magic compressed into something much darker. So, and of course, because Credence had so much more time to do that, all of his magic kind of compounded. And with this is where the Aurelia this is where the Aurelia Dumbledore comes in again, because Aurelia is a Dumbledore. Maybe that also kind of fits into this, where the power of the Dumbledore and the power of Credence combine kind of exponentially to create this hugely powerful, person of immense magical ability that was then transformed into an Obscurus. Just imagine that. He's bare bones. He's considered a bare bones, but he's a Lestrange at one point. He's this, he's that. So, considering his immense magical ability already with Credence, Ariana's then Dumbledore ancestry comes into play, which then gets multiplied by the Obscurus that gets created. I mean, this web is just going to get even more complicated as time goes on, and this is why Credence has to make a change. He has to either stay and really not get very far. He has to join Dumbledore, and he has to either do that, help Dumbledore, because he wants to find out who he is. Dumbledore can do that, Grindelwald can do that. It's a question of who Credence thinks can do it better. Maybe if Credence finds out, or it's revealed that that Aurelia is it Aurelia? Oh my god, Ariana. I said Aurelia so much. I combined Aurelius and Ariana. If it is known that Ariana is inside Credence, then he thinks that Dumbledore will be the better person to help him figure out who he is, and then maybe Grindelwald will try to make Credence stay, unduel him, and that'll be a whole thing. So, I mean, the only solid prediction that I can make is that Credence will have to make a big decision that will definitely influence the story, and that is going to be kind of the one of the subplots that I think is going to turn into much more of a main story point in the series to come. And now for the final topic of the day, the Phoenix. The Phoenix that we're talking about, that when that appeared for Credence, that has been swooping in and out of frame for the trailer that has been seen, that is even like the back of that big, water thing that is in the back of the Secrets of Dumbledore logo in the trailers is a Phoenix, at least what we think. Well, we see a Phoenix in the cover of the movie flying over the water to Hogwarts. The Phoenix is just a huge part of this story, and really, what is it going to do? Well, I think it is pretty much assumed that this Phoenix is Fawkes. This is Fawkes, and as we all know, Fawkes ends up with Dumbledore, someone who is not Credence. So obviously, Fawkes is some kind of help to Dumbledore / Credence in this film, somehow. And I think it will either help Credence. This is another one that was like, it might do multiple things. I think it's either going to help Credence decide where to go, it's going to help Credence recover from his bout of not knowing who he is, or he's going to aid Dumbledore in the fight against Grindelwald. I doubt the Phoenix will stand against Credence, so if Dumbledore does fight Grindelwald in this movie with the help of the Phoenix, I think then if Credence will have chosen to be with Dumbledore. And that will have been, the big decision. That is why the Phoenix would be willing to fight Grindelwald. And as much as I want to say that the Phoenix will, be the most pivotal point, I think that there will be a much more subtle use that Fawkes comes into play here. Now, of course, Fawkes ends up with Dumbledore, so it has to survive. So, I think if it can't play that big a role that Grindelwald will want to go after it, but it can't be so subtle that it won't do anything. So the question here is, how will the Phoenix still have a part in the story, but not make too many ripples? Really kind of filling the tank from the bottom, if you know what I mean. So if we really kind of dive into this, we can't go too far, because we don't know much about the Phoenix, only that it will appear to a Dumbledore in need, which either points to the fact that Credence really is Dumbledore, or Ariana is inside of him somehow. Or Ariana is Obscurus, some part of Ariana lives in Credence, or Credence is a Dumbledore. That much is clear. But that's all we really know about the Phoenix so far. But the Phoenix also appears in the cover of the movie, like we said before, so it has to play some kind of in-between role of importance. It is not just a symbol, but it is not the cover of the movie. It is somewhere in between that helps Dumbledore the last minute, or really comes in to save the Newt or Theseus, or even Tina, maybe. Or even better, maybe Fawkes comes in as this kind of, animal aid, and with the help of Pickett and Teddy, the Niffler and Bowtruckle, Fawkes, Pickett, and Teddy go off to, save the day. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. But what will Fawkes really do? What that, I think, is not, we cannot get specific about that. But the one thing that really got me thinking was an interview with Ezra Miller. Ezra Miller is the actor for Credence. They play Credence in all the films. And what Ezra was saying was Fawkes helps Credence. And I think what Ezra said was they think Fawkes helps Credence. And I don't know if that's before Ezra was on set or after, but I think they were instructed to not say, "Oh, I know." So there might have been some kind of, mystery on purpose for them to say, "I think Fawkes helps Credence." I think that's why he's there. I think Ezra is definitely pointing to the fact. I think Ezra's really the Tom Holland of Harry Potter, really kind of spoiling off stuff. But so we'll definitely get into that, and I think that is really what as much as we can go off of just Ezra's saying of that they think that Fawkes helps Credence somehow. So how would that really look? Well, I think the only way Fawkes really can help Credence right now is that Fawkes helps Credence figure out his identity. Because, Phoenix will appear to any Dumbledore in need. That's great. Well, what if Dumbledore needs Fawkes? Maybe that's why he switches. I mean, there's just so much to it. But for Fawkes to help Credence, like Ezra said, I think that that Fawkes will somehow help Credence discover who he really is. Now, that might not be as obvious as dropping a family, history book at Credence's feet, like Fawkes did with Harry in the Chamber of Secrets, dropping the Sorting Hat and the diary. It might not be as obvious as that, but I think Fawkes will kind of be there for Credence, kind of like just a friend, the friend that Credence never had. It's sad, but Credence never really had someone who he could really feel emotionally close to. Honesty was probably the only person he could really be close to, but still. Not really, because, he was an orphan. It's not really the best place to make emotional connections. So that, I think, is really the Fawkes is the first thing, really, that Credence can have an emotional connection with. And then that's going to help him kind of, discover who he feels like, and that will really help him, kind of guide him in his search. So that's kind of where I'm thinking with this. But then there's the question of, will Credence come back in the next movies? Ezra Miller has unfortunately gotten into some trouble. They were arrested in a bar in Hawaii, and that was not their first offense. So I think the writers would be obliged to write Credence out of the story. So then that kind of goes along with, will he die? Will Credence die? Or will he just not? So there's a lot to be unpacked here, but that's really my I'm not gonna say overarching. I almost did. I am saying overarching too much. Those are my final predictions for the Secrets of Dumbledore. Now, I will likely be wrong, and there will likely be stuff I missed, but I think that a couple of the things I said today are going to come true. Now, I don't know how many, I don't know what, but I think there is more than just, smoke and mirrors here. There's something to this movie that will have to be discovered. And that's really all I can say. A nice, long, solid episode. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, go follow the Instagram account to get there before 20,000 at ThePotterDiscussion, and you can join the exclusive community of the Quillen Inc. It is free to join, but you get content that is not openly available for the podcast, so make sure you go sign up for that. That link will be in the show notes below, and if you do sign up, you get a free ultimate guide to a perfect Harry Potter marathon in PDF form that gives you 2 Easter eggs from every movie and the Harry Potter series, just to make your watching experience just that much better. To join that, go ahead and click that link, the Quillen Inc., in the show notes below. It's free to join, but it is exclusive. So thank you so much for listening to this episode, and as always, remember that happiness can be found even in the darkest of times if one only remembers to turn on the light. I'll see you later.
This was the Potter Discussion.